Welcome to Talk to Experts Tuesday. Thank you all for joining. My name is Sue Macaluso, and I am the Senior Community Specialist here at Qlik. Today's topic, as you know, is migrating from QlikView to QlikSense. We have a large team of panelists with us today, which is excellent. Before we introduce them, I'm going to introduce you to Jamie Gregory, and Jamie is going to introduce the rest of the panelists and just go over some housekeeping and what you can expect from the call today. And get your questions ready. Jamie, take it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sue. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk to Experts Tuesday. We are so thrilled to have all of you here today. As Sue mentioned, my name is Jamie Gregory, and I will be your moderator for this session. This webinar series has been designed to give all of you an hour with a few of our product experts. You can use this time to ask some questions, and it gives you all an opportunity to get to know some of us. So we do have a few housekeeping items for today. Everyone is on mute, so please use the Q&A panel to ask your questions. We won't necessarily be using the panel to respond to your questions, as we're going to try to get to everyone's questions live today. If we don't get to your question, or it's something that may take a little research, we'll make sure that everything is posted in the FAQ, and that will be in the Qlik community. So I'll show everyone where that is a little bit later today. If you hopped on to get your question answered and then you have to leave, that's okay. You should receive a prompt for a survey. So please take the time to fill it out. It takes less than a minute, but you can give us feedback on how we can improve these sessions for you, or another topic that you would like to see. We've had some great suggestions like security rules in QlikSense, using multiple Qlik products together, and scalability testing. So don't be shy, let us know. The sky really is the limit on the topics that we can have for these sessions. We wanna make sure that we're allowing all of you to ask the questions that you need answers to. So all feedback is appreciated. If you do not receive a prompt for the survey, you can email us any feedback at digital@qlik.com, and I'll make sure I put that in the chat for you in a little bit here. You'll also see a QR code on the slides, and that is the QR code for the next session, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So please keep in mind that some of our panelists are within Qlik support, but we will not be able to answer any questions regarding specific open cases. And again, we also ask that you keep the questions related to the topic at hand, which of course today is migrating from QlikView to QlikSense. So again, use the Q&A panel below to get your questions in. While we wait for all of you to enter in your questions, I'll go ahead and introduce the panel for today. Like Sue said, we do have a full house. So I have Nicole Tam, Senior Product Marketing Manager, Ray Struther, Technical Support Engineer, Levi Turner, Senior Analytics Platform Engineer, Johnny Poole, Master Principal Analytics Platform Engineer, it's kind of a mouthful, Kaiki Zaniolo, Director of Product Management, and Andrew Kruger, also Product Management. So Ray, will you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Ray Struther. I'm a technical support engineer, primarily with the QlikView product and some QlikSense and in printing. I've been with the company here in Raleigh, North Carolina, going on 5 years.
Great, thank you, Ray. Nicole?
Hey everyone, Nicole Tam, Senior Product Marketing Manager with Qlik for 3 years. I oversee QlikView as well as customer retention initiatives, including the Analytics Modernization Program.
Great, thank you, Nicole. Levi?
I'm Levi Turner, and as Jamie said, I'm a Senior Analytics Platform Architect. In pre-sales, I've been at the company for a little over 6 years, previously in QlikSense. I'm based out of the Boston area.
Great. And Johnny?
Hi, everyone. I work also with Levi as a platform architect with Qlik. I've been with Qlik going about 10 years now, back to QlikView 11.0.
Wow.
Happy to be here. Happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you. And Kaiki?
Hey, yeah, Kaiki Zaniolo. I'm a Director of Product Management at Qlik, responsible for mobile alerting, as well as overseeing QlikView product in general. Been at Qlik for 11 years now, been in the Qlik ecosystem for 16 years, started with QlikView 6.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. All right, and Andrew.
Yeah, good day, everyone. And my name is Andrew Kruger. I'm up in Ottawa, Canada. I've been with Qlik for approaching 3 years now. I'm a product manager working with Kaiki. I oversee our enterprise reporting platform and our SAS journey around collaboration reporting, as well as in printing, and touch a little bit on QlikView as well. So you have an incredible set of panelists today. So thank you, Jamie and Sue, for setting this up, and encourage you to use the time with the knowledge that's available and ask your questions. So jump in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. Just a reminder, get your questions in using the Q&A panel below. All right, so the first question we have is, we're having a hard time showing the value of moving to QlikSense for those that are used to extremely robust QlikView dashboards. Do you have any suggestions as how to handle these situations?
I guess I'll grab that one. And Johnny, you can jump in with some elements. I know we've talked about this a bit internally. Sue, do you mind stop sharing your screen just so I can present something real quick, just to frame the discussion? I mean, the first thing you need to sort of decide on as a part of this, right, is how are we doing a transition, right? Are we trying to do some one of these variants, right? We've given them sort of friendly names. One of them is new projects only, right? So you keep your QlikView estate for the time being, and you just develop new applications on QlikSense. You of course could do a partial transition. You target the ones that can be moved over or make sense, or things that are in your long-term strategic interests from an analytics perspective, because all customers of any analytics tool have apps that just exist, and they may go away at some point, and that's okay. A full transition, right? You do a complete conversion over of all of your QlikView estate. And then the other one, which a lot of people think of, is you call it a big bang or sort of one shot and just flip the switch. This is one that we don't see virtually any customers do, right? Just because it's prohibitive. There's a lot of investment inside of the QlikView estate that you can't just flip a switch and automatically move over. So the first thing you need to do is sort of pick a strategy, right? And try to be cognizant of what your staffing resources are and what you want out of the new platform, right? You may invest in QlikSense for the new capabilities. You want to do conversational analytics, Insight Advisor. You want to do new stuff, new self-service capabilities inside of QlikSense, mobility, as opposed to converting all of the very complex and dense QlikView dashboards. So once that's done, then you can decide on how you're counting your success, right? But you need to have a plan in place before you even start to evaluate what success is, because success is unlikely to be a big bang. Success is likely to be a waning of resources on the QlikView side and an increase of resources on the QlikSense side over time. And you mentioned robust QlikView dashboards. I don't know what your background is with QlikSense, but I would say try to give it a fair shake on a modern version, because in the past probably 3 years we've added, I don't know what the exact number is, but probably hundreds of visualization enhancements over time that close the gap at an incredible clip, right? So if we evaluated QlikSense 3.0 versus the modern QlikSense, it's just a different analytics platform in some sense in terms of the complexity of visualizations that you can have on the front end.
Great, thank you. Nicole, was there anything that you wanted to add? I know you went off mute.
Yeah, I was just going to add that exactly what he said at the end is that over the past couple of years, we've really turned up the level of, advanced visualizations and capabilities through our advanced authoring functionality within QlikSense. So really, we encourage you to take a look at the latest versions, and really it's a really powerful visualization solution and dashboarding.
Great, thank you. If they're still having trouble, is this something they can discuss with their account manager or something like that to get a team together to help kind of sell it internally?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, these are conversations that I know I've had a bunch. Johnny, I know you've had a bunch of just trying to formulate what is the benefit right here, right? Is it, and of course that's juxtaposed against what we're planning to do, whether it's going to the SaaS platform or going to a client managed QlikSense instance. But we're well equipped to have those conversations, help formulate a strategy and help sort of like justify things so that you can make that case internally, because it's all about making an argument of some return on investment. And the precise figures and the precise return on investment that varies a bunch between organizations. But it is extremely important to work with us as a vendor to try to help make that case for you. So we're always willing and able to jump in there.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, Levi. Thank you, Nicole. All right. The next one's just kind of a comment, but they just said that they're looking forward to this session because it's something that they need to do. So it looks like they're, trying to put some QlikSense in with their QlikView and move over to the other side. All right. Another comment. I'm interested to see how others do this. We went from QlikView to QlikSense and have been very happy with the results. So that's awesome. That's always good to hear. That would be pretty cool if maybe one day we could hear their story about how everything went. That might be something interesting to hear. And another comment, actually a couple more comments. We've been using the dual license for a little over a year now. Can someone talk about the dual license?
I can talk about it a little bit. So what was referred to previously as dual use licensing is now referred to as the Analytics Modernization Program. So basically what our QlikView customers can do is, for a small uplift on their annual QlikView maintenance rate, is that they can gain entitlement to QlikSense for all of their QlikView users. So really to progressively modernize, as Levi shared in this screenshot, is that customers can continue using QlikView as they were and start using QlikSense for new use cases and like it says here, transition over time. So you don't have to disrupt anything in relation to QlikView. Keep running those QlikView docs as you were, and for new projects and new use cases, start to use QlikSense, and that is all for just a modest uplift on that annual QlikView maintenance rate, and a move actually to a subscription model.
Great, thank you. Again, everyone, you can use the Q&A panel below to get your questions in. If you have any architecture questions, any hardware questions, any questions about QlikSense, QlikSense SAS, and how that works with QlikView, anything like that, just use the Q&A panel below. We have all the panelists. We have product management, we have support, and we have architects on the call. So any questions that anyone has, just use the Q&A panel below. All right, next question. What product is best to move to from QlikView, QlikSense or QlikSense SAS?
I could take that. I'll share out just a quick slide. I'll grab the ball from you, Levi. So the question pertains to this. We've got a QlikView down here in the bottom corner. It's on premise. It's running on hardware that you manage in a data center. And the question is, do you jump and go straight up to Qlik SAS, which is basically QlikSense in a SaaS managed environment? Or do you just migrate your QlikView architecture to QlikSense and continue to manage the architecture yourself? And that could actually be in a cloud environment such as Amazon, or it could just be in your same data center where you run QlikView close to your data connections that you have today. What's important in all this is that Qlik as a company has been focusing heavily on SaaS. So we've been putting a huge amount of our effort and resources in presenting an industry-leading SaaS platform. So I would urge you to look at that because of all the capabilities being built out. It's really a main strategic focus for Qlik. Now the option is you don't need to jump there straight away. You could migrate to QlikSense and continue to manage the architecture, but consider the benefits that when you do move to a SaaS architecture, you no longer need to be worried about architectural decisions and sizing new servers and replacing servers and upgrading servers, and management control of the versions, because it all is taken off your hands. Now it's not a binary, yes or no decision. You do need to evaluate your data connections, make sure that your data is available to SaaS. That's probably the first technical requirement. But both are there for you to take a look at, and both offer all the new enhancements when it comes to QlikSense visualizations and capabilities, as well as the more modern architecture. So really both are there. But the slide, the full transition, the parcel transition, that's still available either which way you go, whether it's on-prem or to the cloud.
Hey, Johnny, if I may ask a question and actually say something here about this migration. So this movement that you say here, the on-prem movement, could be due to the data sources as well. So it could be that you said there, your data source is not available to SaaS. So one could at some point here decide to go to QlikView from on-premise to QlikSense. And then we do have distribution tasks that can take that application to SaaS. So then you can keep your data sources on premise. If you're not planning to move them to SaaS right now, you move this to a modern platform on premise that you manage yourself, but then you can put your users on SaaS. So when you do this, you do leverage a lot of that investment that Johnny was mentioning. So we did invest a lot in terms of enabling new use cases for SaaS, such as like alerting. Andrew's actually working on a really nice set of capabilities around subscription reporting and collaboration, so that you do have the option of going like that arrow going up. It's definitely something that could be considered here as well. So I just want to see, Johnny, what is your take on that? And if you've seen customers doing that, if you can comment about
that. Yep. So that's I'll call that a vector. It's my favorite word in these COVID times. But yes, you're moving your existing QlikSense estate up to SaaS. There is an app push that's available natively in the QlikSense product. There's actually an app push that's available straight from QlikView too. So what in either way, within each one of these lines that you see, it's not just about moving over your apps and moving your development. You can actually push your Qlik apps. You can actually push your data. You can make your data available to both platforms or all three platforms. There's quite a bit of flexibility here. And sort of from a detail perspective, we are going to see customers take advantage of the baby steps, as Kaike, you were mentioning, be able to push apps straight from QlikSense up to cloud, push apps from QlikView to QlikCloud. And they'll also want to take advantage of, in some cases, some bigger bang steps. If it's a small estate, we may be able to schedule a month or two and get the whole thing done, and not think about it to move the entire estate, which might be more of a cutover completely. Overarching in that theme is to keep in mind that if you are doing a strategic move, it doesn't usually happen overnight. And I would want our customers to think about all modern investment that's gone into Qlik SaaS. So if it's not going to be overnight, and you're going to start a project towards this, it is worth knowing where your vendor is going, where the investment's going, so that you can land in the same kind of place. And there are baby steps to get there in throughout all of these vectors that you see on the screen here.
Thank you.
So one thing I wanted to add in relation to the SaaS deployment itself is that, Johnny touched on it, but really when you're running QlikSense and SaaS, and you also have a QlikView app, QlikView docs running, you can upload and consume those QlikView docs alongside QlikSense in the QlikSense hub. So, you know, when we're talking about moving stuff over to QlikSense SAS, it's really within this single hub where you can access and consume both QlikView docs and QlikSense apps. So just to kind of put a finer point on it, it's really a view into your estate, a view into both QlikView and QlikSense once you get that all up into the hub. And also, in addition, running in SAS, you run on Qlik infrastructure. We have automated management of an administration of entitlements and permissions and things like that. So there's a significant total cost of ownership savings by adopting on SAS.
Great, thank you, everyone. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. This one's just a comment. Just a comment on selling Sense internally. Our users are really keen on the mobile side, which I'm sure is always great to hear. Kaiki, do you want to talk about QlikSense Mobile?
Oh, do I? It's my favorite subject. Yes. Yes. So no, we definitely have been investing heavily on mobile lately. So we are in the final stages of finishing out testing and releasing a brand new mobile app for QlikSense on SAS. So one of the benefits of that diagram that Johnny was showing, like if you do migrate over to Sense and then eventually you start using SAS and deploying your applications on SAS for your users, you're going to tap into a different set of capabilities that we do have available on SAS. So QlikSense Mobile, it's definitely one of them. So what we did was an integration between the analytics part with the alerting part of the platform, where users are going to have applications on their devices. They can just use the application connecting online to the instance where the application is deployed on SAS, for example. And then those users would have options to create alerts, data alerts based on the changes in the data source where they receive push notifications on their device. So truly just migrating that usage from being a very passive way of I had to go there and check for things to a more modern way of the products actually looking for the outliers and the things that I actually created with the conditions, giving me proactive notification of those events. Then I can go there and do the analysis right there on my device. So basically, the goal is for people when they want to get like a decision making for a quick data check and continue with their work, they go for their device, they just reach their pockets and they get this there. And I think it's really nice. It's a really nice way of shifting that reactive usage of analytics to a more proactive and active intelligence way of using analytics.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so the next question, what about those customers who have already paid an uplift for dual use in the past? How can they move to subscription or SaaS in a cost-effective way?
The first thing I would do is connect with our AMP team, Analytics Modernization Program team. And that is, you can reach them at ampquestions@qlik.com and see how flexible they might be to help with that.
Nicole, can you put that link in the chat too?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone. ampquestions@qlik.com.
Okay, I just put it in there. So.
Oh, you did?
Okay. Yep.
Thank you.
I forgot to put the digital email address, so I'll put that in there as well. So if anyone has any feedback on any of the sessions or anything like that, you can email digital@qlik.com. Perfect. Yeah, so ampquestions@qlik.com, you can reach out to them and kind of get the conversation started to see what can happen there. All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, next question. Is Qlik planning to offer SaaS version managed by clients in their private cloud environment like GCP?
So we do have plans. So we're actually working on a project enabling the environment for SaaS, the microservices that we have to be managed by customers. Specifically GCP, I think we got to check into that, but definitely something that we are working on, something called Qlik Fortress, so, or Forts as is referred to as well, which is a way for a customer to manage the same set of microservices that we have for SaaS to be managed by the customers as well. So definitely something on the roadmap that we have for the product.
Okay, perfect. And Johnny, I think you already kind of answered this one, but maybe we can just talk about it. Is it possible to have a hybrid solution with QlikSense and QlikSense SaaS to coverage limits of SaaS? For example, no task chaining and limited app size. I think an architecture with scheduler on-prem and a distribution policy to distribute apps on Qlik Cloud. Is this possible?
Oh, yes, it is. And I realize as I was looking through those resources, there is a feature cloud in the QlikSense Enterprise on Windows product. And what it does allow you to do is create a distribution policy whereby if a Qlik app is reloaded in your regular QlikSense environment, it'll get auto synced up to a pre-configured tenant. There's a license feature that needs to be enabled in your license so that the tenant can receive that application. But the benefit there is, and this was actually something Qlik was mentioning earlier, as your app is synced, reloaded on-prem in your data center, it gets pushed up to the tenant, and the users can you can reroute the users to come through your tenant now to consume those same applications that were reloaded on-prem and then now synced up to the cloud whenever the app is reloaded. So the answer is yes, in a nutshell.
Perfect.
And so, yeah, go ahead, Levi.
Just to elaborate and make explicit, that same principle applies to QlikView as well, right? So the programmatic distribution of applications, whether they're on QlikView or QlikSense, can be pushed up to, you can consume them there. You can have a mixed mode where maybe you link back to an on-premise site for a couple of applications that are hard to move for whatever reason. So both platforms combined as well, you can link all of them. You're not hemmed into one deployment profile.
Okay, perfect. Great, thank you. Does anyone have any QVWs in the cloud that they can show?
Do they have to look good?
No.
And I was actually just checking something out. Let me pull up an example. So this is an old demo app that we've just put up there, and this one was manually uploaded, but you can. These other two here, which are not pretty, they're not visually attractive. These were all distributed from my on-premise QlikView server and are just programmatically pushed up every time the application refreshes. One feature that I was just checking because it occurred to me that I hadn't sanity checked it is when it comes to data movement. There's a lot of strategies here. One of them that I know we announced that we added support for, but I wanted to confirm that it worked for QlikView as well, is earlier this year, we added the ability to binary load from an application that's in a shared space. So you can, let's say, push up an application that's a data model and then binary load from that data model into a front-end application. And that front-end application, or source data could be a QlikView app. In this case, right, I've got just a simple QlikView app, and I refer to it by its GUID value. And now I have that model from that QlikView app that I've developed on-prem. It's pulling from any number of sources. I'm now reusing that inside of a QlikSense app to allow me to reuse the same investments that I did from a modeling perspective inside of a QlikSense app. that could then leverage a lot of the functionality that Qlik called out, right? So if you wanted to do data alerting on top of that, if you wanted to do monitoring charts in the hub, if you wanted to use those value add capabilities, those differentiators, you can leverage your investment from a data perspective, and then reuse that inside of QlikSense in a fairly easy manner. It is documented, but I didn't see it widely sort of shouted from the high heavens, which this is a really nice capability, is that it's just an app, whether it's a QlikView app or a QlikSense app, it's just an app, and you can reuse it the same way you'd use it if it were QlikSense or if it was QlikView.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Levi. All right, let's see, we are almost halfway through already. Can you believe it? If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm just going to show everyone where everything will kind of live from this session. So again, we do take all these questions and we compile them into the FAQ. The FAQ is out here on the Qlik community. So it's community.qlik.com. If you go here to support, you can go to knowledge base, or you can search from the home page, wherever you prefer. If you just type FAQ, it'll usually pull up. If you want to type, migrating FAQ, that will definitely pull it up in, the top results. But you can just search the knowledge base here. Everything gets posted as well in the programs page. Oh, look at, we have a new add-on, release notes. That's new. Support, programs, and then Talk to Experts Tuesday. This is where all these sessions live. So the recording, the transcript, and then a link to the FAQ lives here. It's under past events. So you'll see that here. And then under upcoming events, of course, is all of our upcoming sessions. We did have to cancel this session. We still need to remove it from the site, but our next session is May 4th, and it's on QlikSense SAS and QlikSense Business. So if you have any more questions, about the specifics of QlikSense SAS or things that you can do or anything like that, coming up on May 4th, we'll have another session on that. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. Next question. QlikView to QlikSense migration tool is not picking layered features and objects. Do we have any plan to implement the same in the near future?
Well, this is Johnny. Andrew and Qlik from product management can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe I've heard of anything in this area. One thing that can serve a certain number of these use cases where you have layered objects that conditionally show and hide is the container object, which was added to QlikSense as a native QlikSense object. It works in a similar way to a QlikView container object, where you associate a number of objects to occupy the same real estate. And depending on conditions, only one of the views will show at a time. So if you're familiar with a QlikView container object, there is something similar in QlikSense in the native version that you can use for this need.
Yeah, and Johnny, you're correct. So, and I think the nature of the two products in terms of how you lay out and how you create your dashboards are very different. So the benefits of that difference is in QlikSense, we have responsive design. So whatever you design there adapts to different screen sizes and formats of consumption. So, and situations like this, the layering, like the layer on top of layer becomes an issue in terms of being flexible and being responsive. So I think this is definitely something that makes a big difference between how you create the visualization and the dashboarding aspect of your applications. I would say that the majority of the cases that I've seen in the past where you have something very, very specific in terms of layering and creating things on top of things. There's also the possibility for you to create QlikSense mashup. So they're pretty much like a web page that you can use different technologies and different ways of developing to accomplish something similar. But in terms of like a migration of the exact look and feel of the QlikView application to QlikSense, that's not something that we are currently planning for.
Okay, great. It might not help in this instance, but I just wanted to throw it out there now that we're kind of talking about what's coming into the product and that kind of stuff. We do have the ideation page out here on the Qlik community as well. So if you have anything that you're not seeing in QlikSense and that you would like to be added as a feature enhancement into QlikSense or QlikSense SAS, you can go here to Ideation. This is a home for all our product managers. I'm sure they can attest to that. They are out here, looking at all of your ideas, seeing what they can do to help implement them. They communicate throughout the life cycle of the idea. So they're letting you know if it's coming, if it's something that they need a little bit more traction on, or if they even need more information. They are out here, I believe, on a bi-weekly basis, looking at all the ideas that everyone puts in here. So if you go to Ideation here, you can go to suggest an idea, and you can, the first thing that we always suggest is to search the idea, see if it's already out there. That will just help with duplicates. But if you kind of just search for your idea, see if it's already out there. If it's already out there, just give it a like, make a comment. If it's kind of a similar idea and you just want, a little bit a tweak to it, just add that in the comments or something like that. Make sure that you do have to have a community login, and you do have to be, I believe, a community a partner customer luminary to add ideas and vote on the ideas and everything like that. So you can come out here, you can add your idea. If you don't see it, then you can just do the suggest an idea, kind of covered by my cameras, but suggest an idea right here, and then you can enter in your idea. I will add to that you should share it where you can, share it with your colleagues, share it with your peers. Again, they do have to have a login to the community, but if you could share it with internals and build that traction, it's something that, of course, they will always look at. So,
Jamie, yeah, I think that point is very good. So I think if you feel passionate about something and you really think that we should be taken into consideration for the product, just make sure that you submit the idea, or you see an idea there just like that. Also go to your like social media and just put this there and say, okay, come check my idea, let me know what you think, because that will help. Like, we do check for ideas that are more popular. We of course investigate and do validation on those ideas to make sure if it makes sense to be part of the backlog of features that we have. That's definitely something that we consider. So you should lobby for your ideas if you think they're important and that we should be considering them.
Yep, perfect. And I'll also kind of plug one of our other programs that we have. We have a program called Feature Content Friday, where you can share your apps and like just screenshots of things that you created, but we also take ideas. So we can post it on the blog so it can get a little bit more attention as well. There's information. If you check out our blogs, I'll just show you really quick. It's the support updates blog here. And then there's going to be a label. I believe it's on the second page for Featured Content Friday, but you can get more information about the program. It's one of those things where you just email digital@qlik.com with a few bits of information, and then we kind of post those. So like I said, it can be apps that you've created, it can be extensions, and then of course it can be ideas. So something to think about. All right, let's go ahead. Next question. One of my concerns is that our QlikView apps access SAP via the connector. What should we watch out for as we move those apps into the SAS environment?
Well, I think this is Johnny. I think I put an answer on the blog. When it comes to the SAS edition, we have added some connectivity to tenants, so that if you're in a QlikSense tenant in the SAS environment, I believe what's there is the SAP BW connector and the SAP SQL connector. And I put a link in the chat as well. I think this is for Roger. click on the link, just read through what's there, and you can make an assessment whether you're 100% only using those connectors and thereby could be ready, or whether you have to go elsewhere. Keep in mind with any of these direct connectivities that you have firewall access to your source system, and that you don't have to break any company firewall paradigms that are in place today. We want to make sure you're able to connect to these in a safe and secure way. So keep in mind both the firewall aspect as well as which connectors you're actually using in your SAP environment.
And just to comment, if the connectivity you're looking for, it's not available on SAS, we also have the distribution task that we were talking before. You can continue to reload the data on premise, push the data to SAS, and then leverage that data there. So there are a lot of options for you.
Perfect. All right, next question. When you are ready to convert an app from QlikView to QlikSense, what is your typical process? Do you use the converter tool or just rebuild the front end in QlikSense?
Well, before Johnny or Levi jump in, I think from my perspective, this is a great opportunity for you to review what you've done, because it could be that that's an app that's old and there are different ways of using the same app. I think this is a perfect opportunity for reviewing to see if what you have there still makes sense. But then I'll let Johnny and Levi just comment on a more technical sequence of steps, I think.
Yeah, as you call it, Kaiki, I mean, you need to figure out whether this is an app that ultimately is something that you want to continue. One of the primary tools I'd recommend using for that is the governance dashboard inside of QlikView. That'll get a sense of what the sessions are for that application, whether people are actually using it and whether it's trending up or down. Right? That'll allow you to rationalize your deployment and start to put them into buckets, sort of high usage, important applications, ones that are waning over time, as well as Johnny's sharing his screen. The governance dashboard does have a score of how easy it is to move those visualization objects. I think you need to take that as a first start. Don't take that as sort of gospel. And the reason why I say that is because we called it out earlier is we're adding enhancements when it comes to visualizations every release, right? Every release we're having a boatload of visualization enhancements. So this is a first start. That'll sort of qualify again what is easy to use. But in terms of the actual mechanical steps, this is where I think it does make sense to do what Kaiki called out, right? Is think about what am I trying to accomplish? Because you can't get the same density of information inside of QlikSense as you can in QlikView. There are reasons for that. Mobility, responsive design is one of those. So you're not going to be able to get the exact same visualization expression, but you can start to build out different workflows. You need to consider how are people analyzing the data and what is a reasonable way for them to consume the data, as opposed to some of the gnarly things that people do inside of QlikView, right? You only have one sheet viewable, and everything else is conditionally show hidden. That's a pretty good use case, or a pretty gnarly use case, and you have to think about why are you doing that, right? Is it you're trying to force selections? Is this a guided experience? If so, there are investments that you can do to convert that. I'd honestly start out by just binary loading the application, getting the model in, start to think through the workflow. If you need some bootstrapping for the visualization elements, the QlikView converter is excellent. It'll bootstrap your process, but you still need to go through an analysis where you think through the user's experience of consuming data and how can that be more easily ported over and adapted inside of QlikSense. And Johnny, you want to chime in to give some context to the elements that you're showing from the help, which is really quite an excellent page.
Yeah, I was just point out to the audience that this help topic is actually under the SAS editions of QlikSense. So if you're wondering if you haven't seen this before, you do have to go to the SAS, even if you're not going to use SAS. If you're going to just use QlikSense, it's worth going here. Click on the link. There's a whole section on moving from QlikView to QlikSense. It does cover the journey to SAS, but it's also going to cover the conversion, as you see here. It's not a 10 10 steps and you're done. As Levi said, there is going to be some decision making on whether the app is worthwhile, whether there's some changes that can be made. What's the flow going to look like? Unless you control your environment and you're budgeted, and your boss says, do this for the next month or so, you may need to sell the whole concept of moving to QlikSense. And that's a slightly different topic, but I did want to bring it up. If you do find yourself having to sell, why would we move our users over to QlikSense? I do have a document that I can share. Some of the major new use cases in QlikSense, which are profoundly better and more powerful in QlikSense, is the governed self-service. That's the drag and drop environment. If you're doing shared objects in QlikView, it is just a wonderfully more amazing experience in QlikSense to have business users drag and drop the environment through a governed library of master items, dimensions, and measures. That is made infinitely more easy. There's no need to install anything. It's just 100% browser-based. Use your Chrome browser, Firefox, connect to the server and start authoring. All the data connections are centrally managed, so it makes it easier for the administrators to govern what data users can connect to and make sure there's server power behind that connectivity. If you have really large data, QlikSense actually does provide solutions for both the near real-time data situation and the large data volume situation. We use on-demand app generation, dynamic views, and a custom approach called session apps, which are all valid and used today in production by some of Qlik's largest companies. These aren't available in QlikView, where we have to preload a lot of data, or we have to loop and reduce, and create hundreds of different apps. It's a much heavier architecture to try to do a lot of data through QlikView or near real time with QlikView. And this is much better and much more improved in QlikSense. So these are two sellable assets to convince your users and management that you do want to modernize your Qlik platform and release a new front end. Finally, there's the mashups, which, and I am a web developer, but although competent, and exceptional web developers I know have told me for many years that is just much better in QlikSense, both from a security standpoint as well as a flexibility standpoint. Deploy the absolute killer front ends to your customers. Your customers, you'll just get the most out of your Qlik environment if you're doing mashups in QlikSense. These are three major new amazing use cases in QlikSense that just are not going to be put back into QlikView at this point in time. And sort of while I'm on the topic, the rest of this document is just discussing the investment in visualizations, which we touched on. 91 new visualizations between the period of February 2020 and February 2021, all going into QlikSense. So if you haven't taken a look at it recently, there is a lot of new things in there that will either meet what you're doing in QlikView or get you some, if not that, get you some new things that will allow you to sell it back to your user base. And the rest of this document preceding here is just a list of architectural improvements that would be good for an architect to take a look at. You may not want to reinvest in old technologies that are required to support QlikView, which is an older software package, but your IT department may want to roll out new security providers such as SAML. They may want to move to new storage systems, cloud systems. New architecture is much easier in QlikSense and it's more resilient. So those two architectural topics are important. The rest of this document will be important for your architects to consume when they're looking at provisioning new servers for QlikView for another 2 or 3 years or however long your servers last.
Great, that was excellent. Thank you, everyone. And we do have a couple questions about the governance dashboard. The first one is, what does that score in the governance dashboard represent?
I'll try to give a stab at it. I certainly have consumed it, but if you're going to ask me, whether we're carrying the one in the proper location, I'm not going to be able to answer that directly. But it's trying to give you a rough directional sense of the rank order of how easy it is to move over, right? So is this a a used application that has an appropriate level of object density, right? Or do we have things that are layer all on top of each other, which is going to require a bit more work to consider it? What's the compatibility of the objects? And there was a call out earlier by a colleague it's a question about the sheet object usage, which we'll help out here. And Johnny, do you mind stop sharing just so I can sort of show you? That should be, if you're on a newer version of the governance dashboard, that should be present. It certainly gives a sense of used and unused sheets, so you can get a sense of productivity analysis. These are the viewed objects inside of these sheet objects, right? So we have sheet 01, sheet 03, this name intro and FT respectively, and dashboard, overtime, productivity report, et cetera. These are not viewed sheets from an end user perspective. So it does give you insight into what's used, so what you need to focus your efforts on, and gives you a rough rank ordering of what is the profile of this app? Is it heavily used? Does it have a half decent object density? Are there things that are being used? Is there compatibility of the objects? And you see here, it'll try to give a call out to some of the objects that may not be directly compatible. And one of these, like the slider, that actually is out of date. We've got a slider object that's a part of one of the visualization bundles that allow you to set a variable and use that in an analysis. So this is where you need to start out with. But again, give an honest shake to whatever the latest version of QlikSense you can get your hands on, whether it's in SAS or in client managed, just to make sure that you're using the right inputs. Because as Johnny showed, within a year we've added 91 either visualizations or enhancements to visualizations. So it's very much a moving target.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, Levi. Perfect. All right. So, and I just want to let everyone know we have 8 minutes left. So get your questions in. Probably the final call for questions. You might be able to take a couple more. And then Sue also put in the chat a link. There is a group in the Qlik community that is focused on migrating from QlikView to QlikSense. I can go ahead and just share really quick, just so I can show everyone. But it would just be under forums. Oh, I clicked on something wrong. Sorry. Let me go back.
Groups.
Why is it keeps clicking on me?
It's jumping on you.
I don't know what's happening. But anyways, we put the link out there. Everyone can go to it. And so if you have any specific questions, you can get, suggestions. Our internal employees are always out here, but you can also get suggestions from your peers. So again, you do have to have a community account, but you can definitely hop in on any of these discussions and ask your questions and help, other users as well, if you feel confident in doing so.
Yep, and I would urge you to join that group so you get notifications when there's new information in there.
Perfect. All right. Question, compared to QlikView, what does QlikSense load into memory when opening an application for the first and subsequent times?
Well, that's a good question. It works a lot like QlikView. So the default with QlikSense is that if you reload an app and nobody's in the app gets loaded into memory the first time someone uses it. So the first time someone opens the app, it gets pulled from the disk up into memory, which is a lot like the way QlikView is. To make that first experience better, especially if you have a large app and there's a long lag time to lift it into memory at first, there is a tool called cache warming, which was done in QlikView, and it's also done in QlikSense. So the cache warmer is a utility. You'll actually find it on the EA Power Tools blog. And it will show you how to lift your QlikSense app into memory before your first user gets in, and that way their experience with QlikSense opening the app is always consistent, barring any architectural limitations. It won't depend if it had just been reloaded or not. It will just open in the same time because something behind the scenes is automatically lifting into memory before the users arrive.
Perfect.
Yep. And in terms of QlikView and QlikSense, they operate basically the same. There's a base data model, right? So you have a model that's loaded. That's going to be lifted from disk and put into memory. And that's the long and the short of it. There have been some slight additions inside of QlikSense of doing automatic cache builds of things called fields on the fly. Think of them as like calculated dimensions that added over the years to try to accelerate the response time for end users. But functionally speaking, think of them as being pretty darn similar. They're both taking an app that's compressed on disk, putting it into memory, and then allowing users to drill down and make unique selections that build their own sort of personal hypercubes of data.
Perfect. All right. Let's see. In QlikView, we can receive notifications by email through the QMC for reload failures. Do we have this option in QlikSense?
So this is available for SAS and QlikSense natively. And on-premise QlikSense, this is available through Qlik Alerting, which is an value-added product that you could integrate with.
Perfect. All right, and probably the last question again. If you have any more questions, just use the Q&A panel. If we run out of time or we hop off before, we can always just answer them in the FAQ for you. How do we get ramped up on QlikSense SAS? Does anyone have any?
I can take a stab. Look, I mean, the long and the short of it is, I don't know how most people learn, but I learned by doing, right? Signing up for a trial is easily available. You can get a trial for QlikSense Business just on the website, right? There's no friction there. Just put an email and go to town. So I'd say start out by doing, right? Start to explore there. Start to use this functionality. If you want to have a more representative example of an enterprise deployment, you can reach your sales contact, whether it's directly to Qlik or through a partner that can work on getting an evaluation tenant for the enterprise variety. But anyone can sign up for a QlikSense Business trial tenant right now, right? Just put in an email, sign up, and start playing around. I know the support folks have been putting out a lot of content around using SAS. So please do review all of the Techspert Thursdays and the content they're putting out. Of course, the standard product marketers like Mike Tarallo, they put out videos at a rapid clip, sort of very, very high quality videos on new functionality in the SaaS world. But to me, there's no better way of doing or learning than doing. So I'd recommend that approach.
Yeah, and if I could just quickly add to that, when you hit your SaaS tenant, you'll immediately land in the Cloud Hub, and there is a number of links and content that is actually seated there for you to immediately jump into knowledge base articles and relevant videos and the like. So you'll certainly see a number of actions you can take to consume more information on the cloud experience. And also there's in the bottom right of the screen, you'll also see almost like a pop-up experience that will give you sort of a what's new as well. So lots of interaction as soon as you hit the hub. Watch for it, and you'll be on your journey.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, everyone.
Jamie, I just posted a link to the trials on the.
Yep, I just saw that. Kaiki put the link to the trial in the chat. So if anyone is interested in doing a trial, go ahead and click on that and you can sign up. All right, everyone, we are at the top of the hour. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, you will get a survey after the session, so please it takes less than a minute to fill out. And it does give you the opportunity not only to suggest topics for future sessions, but to give shout outs to our panelists. So if anyone exceeded your expectations and you want to give them a shout out, please vote on those options. All right, everyone. So our next session is May 4th, and that is on QlikSense SAS. So thank you to everyone again, Kaiki, Levi, Jonathan, Andrew, Ray. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we hope you were able to learn some things today. All right, everyone. Have a great day.